It was a cold, quiet night in Boulder, Colorado, the kind of night where even the wind seemed hesitant to disturb the silence. Streetlights cast pale yellow halos over the wet pavement, and the neighborhood lay still, asleep. At the end of Maple Drive stood a charming two-story house, the picture of suburban perfection. Inside, everything appeared normal. A tidy living room with children's toys neatly stacked in a corner, framed family photos lining the hallway, and the faint smell of coffee still lingering in the air. But by morning, everything would change. At 6:42 a.m., a frantic 911 call pierced the calm. A man's voice, shaky and panicked, filled the line. My wife is gone. I woke up and she's just not here. Please, you have to help me." The man was David Turner, a respected financial advisor known around town for his charm and generosity. His wife, Rachel Turner, was a beloved kindergarten teacher, adored by her students and neighbors alike. They were the perfect couple, or so it seemed. When officers arrived, they expected signs of a break-in, or at least some struggle. Instead, what they found was unsettlingly pristine. Rachel's phone was still on the nightstand. Her purse and car keys sat neatly by the front door, and nothing in the house appeared disturbed. It was as if Rachel had vanished into thin air. David was distraught, or at least that's how it appeared. He sobbed uncontrollably as he told the police about their supposedly happy marriage. Just 2 weeks earlier, they had celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary with a romantic getaway to Napa Valley. Neighbors backed up his story, describing him as a loving father and doting husband, the kind of man who would never hurt anyone. But even in those early hours, detectives noticed something odd. David's grief seemed polished. His eyes were red, but his cheeks were dry. Not a single tear had actually fallen. There was a strange detachment in his voice, as if he were reading from a carefully rehearsed script, rather than speaking from a broken heart. The investigation began immediately. Search parties spread out across the area, combing through nearby woods and riverbanks. Volunteers pinned missing person flyers to lampposts, while drones and K-9 units scoured the landscape. News outlets swarmed the neighborhood, and soon Rachel's disappearance was making headlines nationwide. David played the role of a grieving husband flawlessly. He appeared on TV, pleading for Rachel's safe return. "Rachel, if you're out there," he begged, his voice breaking at all the right moments. "Please come home. The kids need you. I need you." To the public, he was a heartbroken man, but to detectives, something about his performance felt staged. As the days dragged into weeks, cracks began to form in David's perfect facade. Investigators uncovered several troubling inconsistencies. David claimed he'd been asleep all night, but phone records revealed a mysterious call made from his phone at 2 a.m. to an unknown number. Rachel's best friend came forward with an explosive revelation. Rachel had recently discovered suspicious financial activity and had been planning to leave David. The most damning report came from a neighbor who claimed to have seen a light flicker on in the garage around 3 a.m., long after David insisted he had been in bed. A real breakthrough came when detectives reviewed surveillance footage from a gas station 15 miles away. At 3:17 a.m., a car identical to David's pulled into the lot. The driver wore a hoodie and gloves, their face obscured. David swore it wasn't him, but the timeline was too perfect to ignore. With suspicion mounting, the FBI was brought in. Special Agent Claire Monroe, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts, took the lead. She started digging into David's finances and uncovered a tangled web of fake companies and offshore accounts. Hidden beneath the layers of deceit was over $1.2 million, all traced back to Rachel's inheritance. Suddenly, the motive became chillingly clear. Rachel had confronted David about the missing money. She had threatened to leave him, and David knew that if she walked away, his carefully built empire of lies would crumble. That very night, Rachel disappeared. But there was one problem. There was no body. Without it, prosecutors didn't have enough to charge David. Agent Monroe devised a plan. She invited Rachel's family and friends to make a public plea, urging David to join them. On live television, while standing beside Rachel's tearful sister, David made a fatal mistake. When a reporter asked how he felt about Rachel's disappearance, he slipped and spoke about her in the past tense. She was such a wonderful person. The moment was subtle, but for the trained eye, it was a confession. That very night, the FBI executed a search warrant on David's property. Using specialized ground-penetrating radar, they scanned the backyard and detected disturbed soil beneath the newly built patio. Hours later, beneath 6 feet of dirt and concrete, they found Rachel's body wrapped in a tarp. Confronted with the evidence, David's facade shattered. In the interrogation room, he broke down and confessed. The truth was as horrifying as it was heartbreaking. Rachel had confronted him about the stolen money, and during a heated argument, David lashed out in a fit of rage. Panicked, he realized this was his chance to keep her inheritance and craft the perfect alibi. He staged the house to make it look like Rachel had vanished. Jen spent weeks playing the role of the grieving husband while secretly believing he had outsmarted everyone, even the FBI. In court, prosecutors painted David as a cold, calculating killer who hid behind a mask of charm and respectability. The trial gripped the nation, and when the jury returned after just 4 hours of deliberation, the verdict was clear: guilty. David Turner was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel's family wept as justice was finally served. Though their pain would never truly heal, they found solace in knowing that Rachel's story had been told and that her killer would never walk free again. Evil doesn't always lurk in shadows or dark alleyways. Sometimes it lives right next door. Sometimes it smiles at you across the dinner table. Rachel Turner's tragic story is a haunting reminder that we can never truly know the darkness that hides behind closed doors.